Greetings, good storytellers. I am the Artful Narrator, and it is my privilege to welcome you to learning the tropes of writing. Now, today's trope is one that I've wanted to discuss for a long time, but I haven't been able to find the agreed upon title for it, which is often a problem that I have. And so I do not know what I will name this episode. I've boiled it down to two names that I think work, but one is more descriptive and yet a little bit too wordy, and the other is a little bit vague but more concise. Now, the longer of the two is the escalating stakes, diminishing viewer emotional investment paradox, whereas the other is the inversely escalating stakes quandary. And this is the one that I rather prefer, even though it is a little bit more mysterious as to its actual meaning. Now, having set this up, what is the inversely escalating stakes quandary? Well, I will let Arthur Dent from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book by Douglas Adams sum it up. Now, spoilers alert, in that book, the Earth is destroyed to make way for a basically interstellar highway. And after it's been destroyed, Arthur Dent's trying to wrap his head around this, and he's thinking, the Earth. Visions of it swam sickeningly through his nauseated mind. There was no way his imagination could feel the impact of the whole Earth having gone. It was too big. And this is... Oops. There you go. This is just sort of a quirk of our human perspective and understanding. We can mentally understand large-scale threats and immense tragedies, but we don't feel them in here quite the same as we do threats that are on a smaller, more personal scale. And the problem here, from a writer's standpoint, is that we want our stories to have that emotional impact, but yet we oftentimes also need our stories to be more epic in scope, especially in fantasy and sci-fi stories where the very nature of the setting dictates that the threat that drives the conflict of the story should be epic as well. Yet how do we balance these? Well, this quandary was talked about in an audio commentary for a Stargate SG-1 episode called Absolute Power. And in that episode, Peter DeLuise, the director, was describing how it was kind of surreal that there is a scene where Daniel Jackson, in a dream sequence, having been corrupted by the memories of the Goa'uld, helps Earth to build a laser defense grid to protect it from the Goa'uld, but then turns that grid on Earth and forces them to basically give in to his demands and make him the ruler of the world. And when they fail to fall in line, he destroys an entire city. And yet, Peter DeLuise commented on how, with the camera pulled far enough back so that you can see the destruction, see the entire city being destroyed, the people are just ants at that point. They're so distant that there isn't that same emotional connection, and that in many ways it would have been more shocking had Daniel taken out a gun and shot someone, even though only one person would have died instead of thousands or millions. And this is the inversely escalating stakes quandary in a nutshell. So how do you balance these two? How do you get the most out of your story, but also have stakes appropriate to the themes in the narrative? Well, Brad Bird found an interesting way to get around this. Now, he specifically spoke upon this in The Incredibles audio commentary, saying that it is very hard to care about a Throng. And so, because of this, yet understanding that this is a superhero story and the ending needs to be appropriately super, he took the precaution of having there be the big, oh no, the city's in danger, robots destroying it, big moment for the heroes to be heroes. And yet the emotional climax of the film is not, oh no, will the city be destroyed? It comes after they defeat the robot, when Syndrome squares off against them for a final fight at their home with Jack, their son, in his custody. There, the emotional stakes for that final fight aren't thousands of people that are just background characters who we don't even know, or maybe a couple side characters that we have passing familiarity with. It's their son, it's their infant child. And so he is able to have those heightened emotional stakes, because that whole movie is a balancing act between the fantastic and the mundane. And he speaks about this having these larger-than-life superhero characters who still have all the same mundane worries and emotions, and are prone to the same foibles that regular people are, despite how super they come across. And this was a beautiful and very thematic way to end his story, acknowledging that desire to keep this the story of a family of superheroes, but a family first. And so keeping that climax more intimate. And yet you can see that in another movie, also fittingly a superhero story, the Avengers, first movie in the series, there they go the opposite route. And in understanding this quandary, the writers and director don't try to sell the threat to Earth too much. We have had individual movies for the other heroes, save for Hawkeye and Black Widow, but and so we know what sort of stakes they're capable of fighting. And so it needs to be something to justify the Avengers assembling, and so nothing short of an alien invasion will really cut it. And so the Chitauri attack, and the city is in danger, the world soon to follow. But they don't try to make you fear for every single person that's being hunted in the streets by the Chitauri or things like that. They show you scenes of people fleeing, of people being in danger, to sell the threat, but they don't oversell it, because they know that the point of that big conflict is not for people to fear, oh no, is the city going to be destroyed? It's for them to see the Avengers assemble, to see them finally come together as a team and fight in tandem using all their unique skills and powers and gadgets. That's the point, the purpose of the climax. The stakes need to be there to justify the action, but the point of that final chapter is the action itself, rather than the emotional fear of, oh no, will all these ordinary people in the town survive? And yet they flip this with the movie Avengers Infinity War. Spoilers for that if you somehow haven't seen it. But in that, Thanos, the Mad Titan, he wants to destroy half of all life in, I forget whether it's the universe or the galaxy. I think it's the galaxy. And he wins. He succeeds. And if it's hard for us to comprehend a planet being destroyed in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, how do you think we're supposed to comprehend half the life in the galaxy being destroyed? Quadrillions of people gone just like that. Beings on planets we've never even seen. How are we supposed to relate to that? Well, we're not. It's too much to ask. And so they use a different technique to get us to be emotionally invested in this. And that's by having half of the Avengers get turned to dust as well. Imagine if none of them had been turned to dust. Would that movie have had the same emotional impact at all? We would be shocked that he won, certainly, and we would be, motivated that, all right, yeah, the Avengers, they're going to have to, bounce back and get him in the sequel. But it wouldn't have been nearly as gutting as it was to see, T'Challa or Peter Parker just disintegrate away. Doctor Strange. All these heroes that we had come to love and were eager to see their next adventures. And so there, the point was not to have this big heroic moment and see the heroes coming together and fighting. The point there was to have the emotional impact. And so that's what you need to decide, is which do you want? You can touch upon both, but it's hard to do both justice. And it's better to do one thing well than to do several things poorly. And so you can see there, you can either, if emotional impact is what you're after, you can either choose to subvert the, perhaps epic nature of the setting and have the conflict be more intimate, or you can involve characters that are significant to both the protagonists and to the audience in that threat, either placing them in danger or actually, killing them so that the emotional impact is fully felt. Or you can recognize that this isn't about the emotional impact. This is about a threat large enough to justify the kind of heroics that you want to see. So, examine what will be best for your story and look about how to factor this inversely escalating stakes quandary into your story so that you don't waste unnecessary, passion and time trying to make people care about a throng, as Brad Bird describes it. Or don't waste too much time creating a large, gigantic scale conflict if what you really want is for it to be something that is more moving, more intimate. I hope that this helps you in your writing, and that, as always, this video has been either informative or, at the very least, a pleasant diversion. Oh, and this is Earl. He's my other cat. He's Sox's friend, and he didn't have as much chance to be in the videos back at the other house, but here being in a smaller RV, I'm sure he'll show up more frequently. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.